Good afternoon and welcome back to Stick to Sports Radio. I am your host, Colton Lomberger, and we have a very awesome episode for you today as we take a deeper dive into sports leadership. This past week, I had the opportunity to sit down with Logan High School Athletic Director Terry Schultheiss. I'm a former Logan High School student myself, so I was able to have firsthand experience with Terry during my high school career. He's held this position for a little over a decade. In fact, as a sports management minor, I have aspirations of potentially pursuing an athletic director role in the future. So it was a really great experience to gain valuable insights from Terry himself. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. And in general, what does leadership mean to you?
Yeah, Colton, thanks for the introduction. I'm happy to be here. Glad that you thought of me. It means a lot. So, yeah, leadership. For me, really, it's all about working towards a common goal. And I think struggling towards a common goal. I think the most important aspect, every single time that I think about, what does leadership mean to this program? What does it mean to our team? What does it mean to the individual student athletes? It's all about caring deeply for another and caring for a common cause. So really bringing everyone up, we fail together, we succeed together, and we all become better together. That aspect of just, we all want the same thing. We're all striving for the same exact goal. Is really what inspires me and what I hope inspires every leader to just really want the best for every single person in this program, every single person that can be part of this system that we have here. So for me, leadership, when I think about it each and every day, it's what can I do to make myself better, make the team better, and make each individual better.
But how does that specifically translate to sports? Or I guess a better way of phrasing that might be like, when do you specifically see leadership in sports?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll take kind of both of those. Like you said, yeah, I touched on it a bit. Sports are all about the collective. It's a team sport. Lose together, win together, everything together, right? And so we all have that communal goal. We know we want to win. We know we want to achieve great success and perform at the highest level. But the instances in which you see real leadership, I think do tend to be the times when it's in the failures. It's in the losses. It's in the downs. That's when a true leader picks his teammates up, make sure we rebound, make sure that every single person on the team is receiving individualized passion, comfort, just support, just so that we're staying on the same page. It's easy to get discouraged after losses. It's easy to get discouraged, especially if you're on a cold streak. Things aren't going right. There's a lot of stresses, a lot of emotions in the air. That's when your true leaders, have a cool head. They're able to take people aside when they need to and inspire the team when they need to. So you see that in the students. And that's not always the captain.
It's one thing to kind of, define and identify leadership. It's another thing to, act it out. So what qualities of leadership do you exemplify best?
For me, I really focus on empathy. So listening, questioning, can I get to the root of what's going on? Everything is so different from each person's perspective. So for me, it's really, really imperative that I can focus on what matters to each individual. Can I get a true understanding of what matters to every single athlete, every single coach, different programs, different other, high schools that we're facing off against. If you can get a real understanding from their perspective, that's when, you're able to put the pieces together. As I think that's a huge part of figuring out what's going to make the entire system click.
How do you think motivating high school athletes differs from motivating professional or even amateur athletes?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, for me, I've never personally coached any athletes professionally. I've never been part of a professional system, but I definitely have friends who have, and I think I can get a sense of what that experience looks like. And I think to a good degree, because of the professionalism, because of the money involved, it's a job, they're adults, and that's their primary and sole focus. It's completely different. When you're working with student athletes, you always have to be cognizant that they have lives completely separate, off the field, right? They're students, they're musicians, they have, family issues, they have girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. They have a very rich life that isn't always going to be about success on the field. And, I know that's a big frustration for a lot of coaches. That's something that, our program has to keep in mind, that, we're keeping our emotions and everything in check when dealing with these student athletes. And, of course, we want only the best for them, not just in the field, but, in all areas of their lives.
in your position, I'm sure there's many things you deal with throughout the day. But what are some of the biggest challenges associated with your position that you may spend a lot of time on, or may give you more of a headache than others?
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, there's, bureaucratic complications at times, things that are just out of your control, boxes that need to be checked off, people that can kind of be frustrating to work with and all that. You cross those bridges when you get them, and that's just kind of a natural process. But I'd say the biggest, thing that is a real annoyance, a real headache, can just be conflict, especially when it's perhaps uncalled for, perhaps short-sighted. I think there's a tendency a lot of times when you're working with parents of student athletes for these parents to kind of come in with a significant bias, and they have issues with how much playing time their child's getting. They have issues with maybe the selection process, varsity, JV, etc. And what they perhaps miss, and it's rightfully so. I mean, it makes sense. They should strive for the best for their child, and they should advocate for the best for their child. So I completely understand it. But for me, the decision always has to come down to what's the best for the team, what's the best for the program, how can we represent ourselves in the best light, and how can we best achieve communal excellence.
And then just to wrap up here, my last question for you is, how do you go about hiring coaches? What does that process look like? What does your talent pool look like? Things like that.
Yeah, I think we have a bit of a individual approach that not too many schools take, and partly just because of geographical constraints. We don't have an area that is gonna have an immense pool for coaches or anything. But I think part of it is really core to who we are. We have a very grassroots approach to our coaches. The majority of them have been through our program as chieftains themselves in the past and have come back and returned as teachers. They volunteer as recreational coaches. So they're very integrated into the community. And so when you get a coach who has that level of integration in the community, it's very easy for them to build trust and foster great relationships with these student athletes because they're coaching them from a very young age. They're working with them. They're seeing them grow. And they can really empathize with them because they, too, were in the exact same positions.
I really want to take the time to thank Terry Schultheiss again for his willingness to sit down and share some of his experiences with us. In order to meet time constraints, not all of Terry's wisdom could be shared, but overall, I walked away from our interview with valuable industry knowledge and a reassurance of a potential career as an athletic director myself. But what do Terry's answers indicate about him? Personally, when assessing various sport leadership theories, I am immediately drawn to labeling Terry as a transformational and active leader for his department and school. These styles are characterized by providing a stimulating environment where the leader takes an involved approach, acting similarly to a mentor by prioritizing the input and growth of the subordinates. Terry made sure multiple times throughout the interview to emphasize his trait as an empathetic leader. His passions for the position lie within engaging and developing the students through any and all attainable resources he can provide. He opts to not make decisions without understanding the entirety of all affected parties' perspectives. I personally recall my time as a student athlete under Terry incredibly fondly, as I recall him attending almost every tennis match to support us towards success. Terry is a great leader and conversationalist all in one, and I really hope that you as the audience were able to enjoy this segment at least half as much as I have today. This has been Stick to Sports Radio, and I am your host, Colton Lomberger, signing off.